welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
So why don't I just give a quick overview? This is
Yep.
Trendsetter Stable. We do culture, business, society, and society influence of millennials and Gen Zs. So very excited to have a very special guest today,
Brian Chan. Yeah.
Brian Chan. Very important to put Brian Chan.
Very specific because
Yeah.
Brian is so common.
That's true.
Yeah. And even Brian Chan is actually very common too.
The Brian Chan.
The Brian.
The Brian Chan. Yeah. But why don't we start? Like, do you want to just give like a 30-second
Sure,
overview of
yeah.
yourself and why we're so lucky to know you and have you on right now?
Sure. I basically is the head of investment in a company called VSFG, and then so we look at both traditional finance and also digital asset things. I think it's partly related to you guys, digital asset, Web3, and then so. But at the same time, I think today, love to share a little bit more about myself, my background, and also, I also have some experience working in startup, tech startup, and also a VC firm as an investor, I would say. And then, but after you invest in a company, I even jump into a company and work for a company, and then so all these kind of things, kind of add up as an experience, and then so love to share a bit more, and then to really just experience sharing, and then to talk about myself, and also and see how exactly this can help different people think of where they should go, where they should put the time, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
I think that was a really great introduction.
Yeah.
I think the audience of this is a lot of people starting their career and stuff, so I think they would be super interested to know how to navigate their career.
Yeah.
But maybe we can start with tell us about your childhood. Like, did you imagine yourself in finance? Like, what is the?
Yeah. As you can tell from my last name, Chang, CHAN, super common one in Hong Kong. So I actually same. I was born in Hong Kong, grew up in Hong Kong, and then my family was a really, really, really local family, and then so my mom is housewife, and then my dad worked in a F&B industry, so there's nothing related to finance, business, etc., etc. But I have to say I have a very happy family. I have one younger sister, and then, during my time, of growing up, they basically give me a lot of freedom in terms of what I want to do. Not exactly like, okay, if you want to do this, I give you money and stuff, but more about like, okay, if you want to try this, as long as they can afford or they can let me do this, they would just, okay, let's go and try it. But at the same time, every time they also give me a lot of suggestions in terms of the way I should think of the things in the sense of like, okay, if you're going to do this, you need to think of the consequence, and also it is your responsibility to make the choice. So from time to time, because under this type of environment, I always have a mindset of, okay, this is my choice. I choose to do this, so that's why I need to bear whatever happened after. So with that in mind, basically kind of train up myself a little bit. Okay, every time when I make a decision, I would kind of think of, okay, what's going to happen next, this and that. I kind of enjoyed it. I know that sometimes if you think too much, may not be a good things, but I kind of enjoy that. I mean, in terms of like mapping out, different steps, etc., after I grew up, I studied in Hong Kong. I graduated from a University of Hong Kong, and then studied economic and finance. And then so before that, to be honest, I have no clue what I wanted to do. But by the time that I got into the university, I was like, okay, ENF in Hong Kong U is something that sounds fancy. After you graduate, you get a finance job, this and that, and then so it's kind of like this. And then, but from time to time, I always try to explore different things too. And then so, but at the end, still pick the most traditional and common route for Hong Kong people, like working in the financial industry.
So how about you tell us a little bit about that, like that journey?
I think in the very beginning, as I mentioned, right, my parents always give me freedom to choose, right? So I read newspaper, sport related, but and then somehow I find that there's no sport in Hong Kong back then, and then so I read newspaper about business, about finance, and then all of a sudden, when I was a little bit, I still like secondary school record, like in Hong Kong, like so I kind of interested in stuff like building business and stuff, and then but after a while I find that if I want to build a business, actually there's a whole bunch of financial kind of stuff that I need to learn, and I start learning, and then it built up a little bit interest, and then but is it really like I like it so much that I need to make it my career? No, definitely not. And then so I just go there and then study, and then so naturally get an intern and et cetera, in the university to try to learn more about, within the so-called financial system, what is the different part of it about, and then to ask myself, okay, based on my personality, my skill set, et cetera, what fit me most, and then, or I would put it this way is, if I want to be a efficient, effective guy, so based on my personality and skill set, which subsegment I should put myself into, and then so this is really initially the mindset that I have when I study in the university, and of course, I mean, money is one thing, and then to be 100% transparent, so that's why I always try to think about like working in a iBank, IBD, sales and trading, and then I also try operation, even retail operation, in the sense of like when you deposit some money and then back end the system, how I record it and this and that. I even work in a Hang Seng Bank branch in a Chun Wan MTR stations, as in like, please come here, how can I help you? And then so you come to me and say you want to withdraw like $100 US, and I just count it and then give it to you, stuff like that. And then so basically try quite a lot of stuff in the banking and the financial field before I really figure out what exactly is happening, and then pick the route that I really like.
Is there a certain experience, you mentioned internships, that really stands out?
I remember one summer when I was like a year 2 student in University of Hong Kong, HKU, and then before that have been working in some really retail related stuff like retail operation, the teller, and then in the bank, and then so, but one summer I got a chance to work in a Chinese security firm, a sales and trading desk. So the experience is completely different because the desk was run by a US guy. He was hired by a Chinese firm to really build up the desk. So that's why he's running around to find some cheap or even low-cost intern like me. And then so because he needs someone who can read Chinese and translate. So basically I joined that firm, and then so until this moment, that job is still the one that I get into office most earliest, right? I mean, because every single day as I'm working in that sales and trading floor, so every single day as an intern, I need to be the first one to get in. So I make coffee and make coffee. Yeah, the first thing that I need to do is make coffee, and then for all of them, when they come back, they need to just have hot coffee to drink, right? So I need to get back, arrive office at around 5:50, and then so that means even if because back then I was living in like Tin Shui Wai,
right,
and then my job is in Central, and then so that's why even I take the first one, I still need to run. And then so people look at me like crazy. Are you guys running, wearing suit and then running in Central at 5 a.m.? And then so that is quite a tough experience. And then so the boss, from a U.S. sales and trading guys, I mean, very tough. I mean, always like some backward at a trading desk. And then so, but somehow that train up the mentality. Like, okay, if you bring me on some mistake, then I try to do it better, and also physically, of course, is tough, and then because you need to wake up really early, and then in the afternoon you get back to school to take the class and this and that. So it's a good training, but after that, and things become quite different, because once you get into that so-called sales and trading field, then the next intern that I land on is the UBS sales and trading desk, and then so it's completely changed the path quite a bit. So I would say. That's just really the experience that I always find it tough, but at the same time I feel thankful about. Yeah.
So how do you kind of survive that? I mean, like,
I don't know. I no money, right?
But it's strong, right? I mean, like, obviously, like you want to work really hard, and I think you said it perfectly. Like, it's kind of like an inflection point, not even for your career, for your life. Like going from like retail, working in like the MTR versus high finance, but like. Did you think at the time, like, what was your mentality to get with this? Like, I just fucking need to do it, like.
I think from that back to that moment is, I know sales and trading is a tough place. I mean, because after some online research and this and that, but I think from my perspective, it's really from a learning perspective, right? I get a chance to get in, to learn from a US guy who used to run wherever that's in I can't remember, is it Merrill Lynch or something, and then so basically, for me, it's really like if I can wake up early, basically I can learn. And then so it's really for that. I mean, to be honest, nothing related to money because they're not paying me at all. And then so I guess that is really the key motivation, because before I can decide what I want to do for longer term future, I know that I need to learn about what exactly is happening in the sales and trading desk. And at the end, I mean, right now I'm not working in sales and trading, so that means even I'm thankful for that experience, but I've also learned that I'm not that personality at all to do that sales and trading things. So, but before you get through that, all you can learn from that, particular kind of subsegment of a financial system is from online. But the kind of I would say on the ground, on-site experience is completely different. So, and I also kind of, answer the questions that I have in my whether I really want to do this, and then the answer is no. And so that's why when I graduate, basically I move on and then do other kind of subsegment of the whole financial system. Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask, like, just one thing you said there that I actually really want to just ask about is you mentioned like what you read online versus the reality. Yeah. Like, what would you say was the biggest contrast for you?
Well, I would say when you read online, basically people can just describe the overall job nature of this particular business. But even within a particular business, you need to know that what is the career path, and then in the very beginning, as an intern or as a junior, what kind of lifestyle or kind of mentality you need to have in order to survive to get through that career path, right? So most of the time when you go to do some online research, they won't tell you that deep, and even they mention about it for you is just one single bullet point that okay, this is thanks for information, but and then before you try it, you always think that you can handle it or you like it because of the money they're gonna pay you, but sometime until you try, you probably find it like, okay, it's not really suitable for me, because sometimes it's not only about money, but also the stress, also the happiness, whatever add up. So I guess this is something that when you do the online research, it is not something that they can tell you until you try it. Yeah.
So you mentioned waking up early, stressful environments, hard bosses.
Yeah.
What would you say is like one of the biggest differences that it applies from when you first started to where you are now?
Well, I think still stressful, I would say, but but I think in different sense, right? I mean, back then when I was really like intern or junior, the stress is like, okay, I don't know how to do it, and then I still need to do it, and then I'm working under different people's schedule, my boss, my senior, and etc., and also the client, etc. So you will never have your time, and then at the same time, since you are new and then you get into a firm like this doing something that you only learn from internet, and then so basically on the ground you find I don't know how to do this, I don't know how to do that, and even a simple translations things, sometimes the professional wordings you don't even know because you haven't worked in it before, right? So and so all these kind of things, all most of the stress from that moment is really from your senior, your team. You want to do it, you want to learn it, you want to catch up, and then that mindset of wanting to catch up actually is a stress. And then so, but right now, I think the stress is mainly from how do you manage the team. It is not only yourself, because if everything doesn't work out, then it's about the whole team, everyone, and then and at the same time, the things that you need to pay attention is also different, right? So back then you only pay attention to your single task, make sure that you deliver and no one say the F word to you, and then but right now it's more about the big picture. I mean, how can you connect the dot and then make a good decision and ask your team to do the right thing, etc. So these kind of things sometimes, and as you guys may know, I mean, there's no 100% right thing, but the one who's sitting kind of or need to make a decision, not sitting on the top, the one who need to make the decision basically need to bear that responsibility. And then sometimes the time that you make the decision, most of the time you can't be 100% sure that is the right decision. So this is something that you need to bear yourself, and that is where the stress comes from. But I guess most importantly, I mean, at different time of my career, of course, there is stress, but I think most important part is how do you handle that? How do you find your peace of mind, during 24 hours, every single day, are you gonna like stress out for every single minute, or you find your own way to release the stress, and then so that the whole kind of working style become much more sustainable, which I think is much more important than just, okay, let's do this within 10 hours and then, or 10 days, or every single 10 days I only sleep 1 hour. It's not gonna be sustainable. So I think it's really important to find a sustainable way that you enjoy your job, and so that you can keep on. It doesn't have to like deliver a 120% every single second, right? But you need to find a way that you can deliver at least 90%, in a sustainable way. I think that is more important.
I think there's a couple of really interesting parts that you mentioned. Like first is, well, how do you deal with your stress?
Yeah.
Like, and then how do you deal with stress at different levels? Because as you said, right, like when you're a junior, you might get a lot of shit to do all this stuff. And then you have to execute, but then as you rise up, you're facing, to your point, like very different levels of stress versus being execution to the stress of managing people. So how do you?
Well, I think internally in general, handling my stress is I actually back to my morning routine again. I mean, not because of the job. It's partly because I all of a sudden, just by chance, I find that okay, if I wake up in the morning, actually in the first 2 hours after I wake up. I usually will just use that 2 hours to do whatever I like to do, meditation, exercise, read, and then et cetera, but within that 2 hours, I won't touch the phone at all. And I find that actually, I find my peace of mind during that moment. I feel really relaxed. And then with that 2 hours, actually the rest of the day, usually we become much more productive. And this is only my way. And then so this is one way for me to really like find the peace of my, every single day, I would say. And then, so in terms of during the kind of day-to-day work, handling stress, I would say really the mentality. I have been keep telling myself to stay positive, I would say, in the sense of like, okay, sometime, as I mentioned, there won't be like 100% right decisions, always like give and take. And then so, but how do you kind of proactively find a solution for every situation that can actually strike a best balance is actually more important. And then so, and again, just like what I mentioned earlier, I keep telling myself this is the choice that I made, so I doesn't really have to kind of blame someone else, because if you start, for me, usually with my past experience, that after you make some decision, after that, if you bring someone else, probably the mental kind of stress will be even worse, because you keep the negative mindset in yourself for a longer time. So usually I would tell myself, okay, this is my choice, and then this is it. I think it is the best decision, and that's it. And then so if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. Yeah. So it's usually I try to for me it's really mentality. Yeah.
So you're really a morning person then? Like that 5 a.m. thing really sets you up for life?
Right now still, I mean, at least I kind of enjoyed it, I would say. Yeah. But, as you can imagine, if you have a happy hour drink with your friend, and then so starting from 9 p.m., you will be like, oh, and then, okay, haha. And then you basically say nothing and just, stay there and smile because you are really tired by then, yeah. So yeah, I kind of enjoyed it. Really like morning things, yeah.
So I ever just see you smiling and now just be like, let's call it a night.
Time to go. Perfect advice. I mean, feeds into our next question on a professional side.
Yeah.
Could you tell us what working in IB is really like?
Okay, first of all, I think if anyone who are still interested in working in the investment bank, first of all, probably they need to find out what exactly is in investment bank, because IB stands for investment bank, right? Within IB, within an investment bank, there are different divisions. So sales and trading is one thing, IBD is one thing. IBD is the investment banking divisions doing particular kind of functions, and then so equity research is the department that I work in. So basically a study company, and then write a report, etc., and then there's a whole bunch of other kind of supporting functions within the investment bank too. So the most easiest way to find out what an investment bank do is to really like go to a financial statement that they have. They basically list out what is the revenue live for different business unit. Then you basically will have an idea, for this bank, where does the revenue come from? And then so sales and trading, and then this and that, and then so in terms of the live in that, so I get a chance to work in sales and trading before as an intern, both in a Chinese firm and also UBS, and then so. Back then, I was a equity sales. So basically, I need to pick up the phone and talk to client, or even writing some kind of simple note for the senior sales, etc. And the environment working in sales and trading is completely different when compared with working in IBD and also equity research. sales and trading is fast. You get in early and then you leave early because after the market close and then basically you wrap up. So very likely that you can leave your desk at around 7 p.m. But you probably start your day at around 5 something. So this is the really like the sales and trading kind of working hours, I would say. But during that working hour is super intense because you need to be super focused. Everything is like quick, and then so. But when you work in a IBD and also equity research, in terms of the intensity, maybe it's slightly lower, but the hour is much longer. So basically, on average, I guess for a junior, everything add up, including the fact that as a junior you don't know everything, so you need to spend time to learn, to make mistake, and then to rewrite everything, etc., etc. So everything add up on average. I think in the first 3 years, probably 16 hours a day is on average, and then. Not to say that during Saturday and Sunday, most of the time you need to work, and because there is not enough time to finish all the tasks you were asked to do. So this is really the IBD and also equity research live back then. But I heard that the live nowadays is slightly better because of the fact that more and more talent are less willing to go to investment bank, but instead they go to referee company, they go to tech company, etc. So the competition for the talent become higher, and that's why that's why IB cannot keep squeezing every single last job choose from the talent anymore. So that's why I heard the live is better, but if I were a fresh grad getting in an IB, I would still try to set the expectation and standard higher, and then in order to learn as much as you can during the first 3 years. Yeah.
So what's the churn rate like for the sales and trading versus IBD?
You mean churn rate in the sense of
churn rate as in like, I can only imagine that sales and trading is very stressful, and then IBD is very long hours, also very stressful, right?
Yeah.
So which one has a higher volume of people leaving the job?
I personally believe that IBD would have a higher one, in the sense of like, because IBD usually have a very specific path for an IBD person, right? So usually when they get in an IBD, they will be like, I worked in an IBD department for 3 years, and I get my experience, do some deals, close some deals, and then have some track record writing on my CV, and then I will start kind of thinking of whether I'm gonna stay in the bank for another 3 years for associate and VP, or they start thinking like, okay, should I go to a PE firm, so-called buy side, the investor side, so that the life will get a little bit better. So it's kind of like a lateral or a formal, or not formal, but lateral path for the career development for IBD. So that's why every 3-4 years, people will start thinking of, whether I should kind of jump to another side. And then, but for sales and trading, usually the path or the cutoff is not that explicit, I would say. So people just work there, and then if he or she is a good trader, then maybe at some point some hedge fund will reach out to them and ask them to jump and this and that. But it's not like, okay, you work in sales and trading for 3 years, then you think of like working in a hedge fund and this and that. And then so it's quite so that's why I believe the term rate in IBD should be slightly higher than sales and trading. But of course, last but not least, you still need to look at the business cycle. So where the cycle is, and then so is if the cycle is like up cycle for IBD business, then people stay because the bonus is good, right? So everything add up. But in general, I think IBD have a higher term rate.
Because you mentioned you work for a Chinese firm, and then you work for UBS, right? Is there any key differences between Chinese firms and UBS?
Well, I mean, first of all, even I work in a Chinese firm, the team that I work in is all international team. international team. And then international team, right? So that's why the day-to-day kind of environment is not much difference, because still like English speaking, and then so the culture is still quite international. But when it comes to the time that you need to deal with the account, HR, it's quite different, right? And even not only like Chinese or non-Chinese firm, it's a little bit like Chinese firm, international firms, and local Hong Kong firm. It's actually quite different. I mean, for example, in an international firm, maybe after 6 p.m. you can still find those account and HR people, but in a local firm, okay, let's wait until tomorrow. Yeah, so probably usually it's like this. I mean, it's a little bit like a culture thing. I'm not saying that which one is right or wrong, because everyone needs to strike a work-life balance, but But just in terms of culture, I guess, yeah.
Maybe just take another step back, right? You mentioned the Chinese firm and UBS, and you mentioned you kind of got into like equity research.
Yep.
So can you talk about, you know, how that process was, like the interview process, like, and also like, which, I mean, I know which firm it is. But
there's actually a very specific point that why I decided to really move on to either IBD or equity research when compared to sales and trading. So when I have my intern at UBS, I would say equity sales, and then so I just literally feel like, okay, I just sit there, but not much I can do because as a junior. And then I start to realize that actually most of the job that they are doing right now require a certain level of experience and knowledge about the financial market, and at the same time, it requires relationship with the clients. So as a junior guys, I think, okay, sitting at a sales desk, probably you can do, you know, all you can do is buying coffee for the trader, for the sales, and at the same time dropping notes, etc., etc. But so, and back then, what I was thinking was I really want to beef up my fundamental knowledge about financial knowledge. So that's why I asked the sales, okay, what is the best way to do that? So, and then they kind of mentioned that, okay, you can either work in equity research, which need to spend a lot of time on financial modeling, financial analysis, etc., or a IBT kind of department. And then so I basically during that UBS internship, I just raised my hand and asked, okay, I want to move, I want to change my department. And then lucky enough, there is someone in equity research are willing to kind of take me, you know, to finish the other half of the internship. So that's why I moved on to the equity research team in UBS. And so that is how I really like shifting from the sales and trading to the equity research. Yeah. But again, I mean, if someone like really enjoy, you know, talking to people, really outgoing people, maybe, you know, starting as a junior sales may not be a bad idea too. But, you know, again, asking myself, you know, the personality and also everything adding up, I think it's better for me to really like ramp up my fundamental skills at first. Yeah.
And then from the equity research, you finished that internship at UBS and then you graduated, and then how was hiring season? Because I can imagine it's quite intense. Right?
Quite intense. Yeah. It's actually just like most of the graduate. I mean, you guys also, you know, get through that period. I mean, in the last year of your college, I mean, basically running around in a private job and an interview and this and that. I at one point I would say, because I have done many different internships during my university, and then at the same time I also work in UBS as an intern before, and back then there was a certain level of ego in my mind because, oh, okay, I work in one of the best kind of investment bank, and so, but all of a sudden, I would say, I received an email and said, okay, we can't give you a return offer because we don't have a budget and this and that. And then at the end, I find out, you know, for that intern class, only like 40% of them get return offer. The rest basically just say bye-bye. And then so all of a sudden, I become really disappointed. But I still believe that I can land on a good job. And then so I keep on running around and then try to look for investment banking or equity research. At least I want to get an IB, right, basically. And then, so I think I spent around, I don't know how long, but for some time it's quite stressful again, because no offer, keep on interviewing, and then, but very lucky that I remember after 3 or 4 months of interview, I get my first offer from HSBC about as a credit trader or credit analyst, and it's still in the sales and trading things, and then, but I remember back then I was not that happy because I still want to, you know, get into a better firm. Well, from my perspective, better firm, right? Not
hey, no offense, HSBC.
Yes, and from my perspective, better firm. So I keep on finding, but the only good thing about that job is at least I have, you know, less pressure back then because I know that I already get a job. So I keep on finding, and because I become less stressful, and as you can imagine, the performance in the interview will become better, and then so that's why I have to say sorry to HSBC. I mean, if I get a chance, and is that actually I took the offer, and then it's actually quite an interesting experience. I took an offer from HSBC, And then, but offer is offer, right? It doesn't, if you turn down the offer at the end, you doesn't have to do anything, right? Or pay them anything. So I took that first, and then so I remember, let's say, for example, tomorrow is my first day, right? And then so I was like, okay, tomorrow is gonna start at HSBC. But all of a sudden today, I received a call from Goldman. And then Goldman said, okay, I'm gonna give you a offer. And then so I just immediately called HR of HSBC. And then they were like, they were like super mad, as you can imagine, right? Because very last minute, they said that you can't go to work tomorrow. And then I was like, and then they asked me why, and then I said I get another offer, and then they keep asking me which firm, this and that. I said Goldman Sachs, and then so it was like quiet for like 20 seconds. It's like, how can they give you an offer? And then I keep asking that. I was like, why not? And then they were like, okay, we have a kind of like a long written agreement among different IB that if a fresh grad get an offer from one bank, usually if another bank know that, they will not keep on kind of moving on for the interview process. And then one of the reasons why Goldman are willing to give me this offer, because back then, actually before I graduate, I actually finished all my credit a little bit earlier, like 6 months earlier. So I have 6 months kind of empty period, so I go out and work in a hedge fund. And then so that's why Goldman said that, I'm gonna hire you as an experienced hire, but not as a graduate. And then so that is how they kind of get around that. And then so that HR was like super mad, and I just handed it for me.
Did you have to go through an interview process?
Yes.
So
of
how
course,
was that?
I remember it's like 15 rounds of interview, roughly, yeah. And then, well, I mean, I have to say, right, 15 rounds of interview is tough. You keep seeing basically all the people, and at the end, I find that after I get on board, I find that some of the people who interview me, I don't even need to work with them, basically, but they still are part of the interview process. And then, but I have to say, within that 15 interview, some of the questions are basically like the same questions, but you're just kind of repeating yourself a little bit, but still tough, right? I mean, some of them are like including those kind of random brain teasing kind of questions, stuff like that. So that's real. I mean, that's real that there's a long process of interview for Goldman. So they basically ask the whole four, not the whole four, but half of the four to interview with you, talk to you, ask you out for lunch, and then to make sure that they want to work with you, basically. And then so yeah, I mean, yeah, but again, I mean, the lucky part for me is really like, when I had that interview, I already have the HSBC offer on my hands. So a little bit like, okay, let's do this and try my best, this and that, yeah.
Damn, you're so modest, bro. Like, insane. Like, you had a conversation with you and you're just like, I got a gold. It's like winning the friggin' it's like winning the lottery, bro. It's like very, very good. Like, so how was the 4 years at Goldman's? Like, how'd you find it?
Really tough. I mean, I basically, all my life is only about work, basically, in that 4 years. But I have to say it's a really, 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 really good experience. And in a sense of like really training up your fundamental skills. But I think more importantly is really training up your mental expectation for everything. As in, it's set the standard, basically, right? Because you work inside, so you basically by default think that, okay, when you work on a PowerPoint, the standards should be there. If the standard cannot hit there, you cannot send the PowerPoint out. So with that in mind, actually it helped me quite a lot in the future career, because you always have a higher standard in your own mind. So when the things that you deliver always basically over expectation of someone kind of have on the product that you're going to deliver. So it helped me a little bit in terms of like getting some good feedback down the road in the future. So yeah, I think it's good training school. But again, it's tough. I have to say, it's a really tough life. Yeah, I remember one time I make a mistake in my financial model. My boss really asked me to do a push-up in the office. Yeah. As a punishment, yeah. I was like, okay, why not? but of course, yeah, not ideal, but they really like have those kind of like style, yeah. But not like super serious. Like they're not bullying you, but it's like making joke, but at the same time, it's a joke, but you better do it. Yeah.
So you mentioned basically a lot about the 4-year track, right?
Yeah.
So was that the reason why you left? And maybe we can talk a bit more about like the next steps you've taken. So what was the kind of the inflection point to make you
Yeah, I think the inflection point that made me leave the firm is at one point it's actually quite funny because I keep my head down and keep working, and then one day the market is bad, and then my direct boss basically was asked to leave, and then but the senior management actually come to me and say that you are 100% safe. I want you to stay, blah blah blah, and then it's actually give me a moment to really like think about what I want to do, and then I start asking myself, okay, I'm looking at the MD or the senior partner in the firm in this department, and then I ask myself, where do I really want to, spending 16 hours, let's say 14 hours a day, and then for the rest of the 10 years to make myself, that position, will I be happy and this and that, and then so at the end the answer is no, I don't want to do that anymore, and then so writing on the whole kind of little drama, and then so I just resign, and then I joined another boutique VC firm in Hong Kong as a pretty much like a small co-founder, I would say, which is the VC fund. The VC firm is actually founded by one of my ex-colleagues, and then so we joined forces together to do that. But I always like keep telling people, it was 2015, roughly around, and then so we make a decision that we should focus on Southeast Asia market because my ex-colleague is a Australian, and I'm a local honky, and then so I have no Chinese kind of background. He has no clue about Chinese, so let's not touch China, right? But obviously, I mean, the location is right, but the timing is wrong, because as you recall, after 2015, basically everything is about China. The DD, whatever kind of investment, all about China. So that's why after deploying the first fund that we have, and then so we basically can't raise the second fund because the track record is not good enough, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why, it's kind of like, after that, we move on basically, and then we joined another like family office, and then basically kick off my career of working in family office, I would say. And then so in the family office, I mean, the key responsibility is still about investment, allocations, investing in different stuff, et cetera, et cetera. But since it is a family office, usually there's a whole bunch of like other different stuff to handle, for your boss. Why are you guys allowed?
No, because you are inspiring, man. It's relevant. Like, shit, that's inspiring. Okay. Well, you mentioned like you did like tech in between. Was that the VC fund?
Yeah, in the VC fund. Yeah. So basically, within the VC fund, basically we invest in a company. Back then, try to do a startup rating. Is more like a rating agency for startup. So basically, back in that moment in Hong Kong, Start Me Up HK, Hong Kong government is super supportive in terms of bringing tech startup to Hong Kong, and there was also a whole bunch of like VC, angel investor in the city. But one of the kind of problem that we see is that there's too many different type of startup all over the place, and then so no information about them, et cetera, et cetera. So we're kind of thinking of, is there any way that we can have a database and rating system to really give a high level view of different startup, in Asia, and then so that investor can subscribe and then to really like better choose what they should invest. And then so after investing in that company, basically I pretty much like jump into the company to help really like fix the structure and then really build a product, etc. So that's why at one point I actually have a chance to work with the tech team to really like have different sprint and etc. and also have a chance to represent the company to go to San Francisco to join the Founder Startup Accelerator program. And so yeah, I really like literally there and then join the program, and then so as a like a startup founder, and then so it's quite a interesting experience. I mean, especially when you look back, compare this experience with the Goldman, 16-hour a day, keeping heads down, working on the financial experience type of experience. It's totally different things. So yeah, that is also a moment that I learned quite a lot, but at the same time also another stress, also kind of day to day, or kind of come to me. I mean, in the sense of like, I mean, as you can imagine, right? I left Goldman. Of course, I take a deep pay cut to do whatever job. I mean, and some of my time spending in a startup, as you can imagine, probably they won't be able to pay what Goldman is paying me. So that's why I take a chance basically, and then so bear the risk, make the decision, and then try to do this. And then so one of the source of the stress is really coming from financials, I would say. Not that I need that money to really like pay the rent or something, but just mentally, you always try to compare. Okay, if I haven't left, then what happened? Blah blah blah. But when I look back right now, if I can do it again, I probably will ask myself stop thinking about that, because it's completely not healthy at all. Because again, you already make a decision. You need to bear the consequence, and then just try your best, be proactive to make this happen, instead of asking if I haven't done that, then would it be better, this and that. But what I should do back then is really like stop thinking about that, put my 100% focus on how can I make my whatever salary pay back to the level that Goldman is paying me, or even higher than that level. So this is, if I look back, I probably would handle my kind of mental situation a little bit better back then. Yeah.
Those are some very two contrasting experiences. Yeah. Right? So right now, as your role as CIO, which of these two experiences would you say helps you more?
I really think both. I mean, of course, if you talk about CIO, Chief Investment Officer, not information. And then, so from that perspective, I guess a lot of people think that it's only about investment. If we only look at that investment perspective, of course, Goldman experience, financial modeling, those kind of financial knowledge, of course, it helps, right? How do you look at the company? How do you do the analysis? Definitely, no doubt that it contributes quite a lot. And then, but I think if you take a step back, looking at the role of so-called CIO, sometimes there are different type of definitions, right? Depends on what kind of organization you're working in, and also what kind of role that you're working in. For example, if you're only working in a single hedge fund doing stock investment, then the CIO that they means usually is the one who decide which stock to buy, who make a decision, right? So it's only about investing. And then, but if you take a step back and think about, okay, you're working in a company like an asset management company with different funds, and then you're a CIO role to really like oversee the whole kind of fund management business, then your decision is less about making investment decisions, but more about gatekeeping the investment decisions. And at the same time, you need to think of, okay, what exactly is happening out there? How should I structure this company to make sure that the resources and things are put in the right place to kind of get ourselves ready, position ourselves better for the next bull market in whatever industry. So this is completely different skill set. It's a little bit like not only making investment decision, but really like how to run a company. But if from that perspective, then I think the startup and also the operational experience helped me a lot. Really from a sense that not only I look at a huge company from a financial perspective, because I need to look at those listed companies to understand how they run, to kind of tell people that why they're good, why they're bad. But at the same time, I also work in a really, really like small company and try to really build something from scratch. I mean, these two type of experience adding up actually helped me quite a lot in terms of my future career, because at different point of time, actually you require different type of mindset and skill set. So I would say, I won't say, Goldman dominate the whole learning experience, good experience, but definitely, both sides basically help me. And I would say, really like old school way of saying that. All this kind of experience that I got to basically build whoever I am right now. Yeah. So adding up everything basically. Yeah.
How do you feel like, because they're just from those three that you mentioned, there's like three very different phases to your point, right? Yeah. Like one is a very established, like how to analyze a company, traditional large bulge bracket investment bank. The other is VC that you started with your friends, so it's very entrepreneurial and stuff like that. And like family office is a lot about preserving family wealth and growing that as well. So for you, like which one do you feel like, okay, this is something that's really changed the way I saw things? Which one did you enjoy the most? Which one were you most like scared about looking back?
Right now, I actually enjoy most working in a family office type of things, in the sense of like, because after all this year, I have a chance to pick a career path that only focusing on investment. That means really like jumping into one particular fund, helping these funds to source deal, make investment, and then exit, etc., etc. So this is really like working in a particular VC, right? And then so, But working in a family office, I think the good thing about it is you still need to look at deals, and then depends on the mandate of the principal. I mean, sometimes you will be able to invest in some fancy stuff, or sometimes you only can invest in bond, right? And then but overall, basically, it can still leverage my investment experience. But at the same time, as I mentioned, there's a whole bunch of, weird stuff or like long investment stuff that you need to handle. And from that perspective, actually, most of the time, it can leverage my operation experience. For example, solving some really tough problem, you can't just leverage on your financial knowledge, basically. You need to kind of think outside the box, just like the time that you work in a startup, right? You can't just, there is no formula, basically, building a startup. So you have to like exploring, just like solving those problems is a little bit like that perspective. There is no particular solution, or you don't even know whether it is solvable, right? Yeah. So basically, that's why I think that part add a little bit more challenge, and I enjoy that part quite a bit, yeah. And yeah, I guess at the end of the day is family office, VC, or even like working in a corporate role. From a career perspective or business perspective, it's always just about making money, and then from their perspective, right? But as a employee working inside, sometime I would try to, think of like how can I work in a job which I can help them make money, which is professionally I achieve what I need to achieve, right? And at the same time, I also ask myself, what kind of challenge or learning that I can get from the role, yeah.
Your role right now is quite senior. Would you have any advice to offer to someone who is aiming to get into a position or role like yourself?
You're at the peak, bro.
No,
It's not like cheap. Like you're cheap. You're C-level, no?
No, definitely not. I mean, I myself still have a lot of things to input for sure. This one, I think, if really like one advice that I would give is that I'm actually quite certain that every single person have their own strength and kind of like specialty areas. For example, this person may be good at coding, and then this person may be good at sales, etc., or good at finance, etc., etc. So of course you choose a segment that which you are good at, and then spend most of the time there, meaning your daily working hours there, to build a career, leveraging what you are good at, and then but at the same time, again, I'm actually kind of regret that I didn't do it earlier. Is that be really, really open-minded. In the sense of, for example, every single morning, I mentioned I would read, right? Read books, right? The one principle about picking a book is that I will never read something that related to my work. I will read something outside of my work. For example, I'm working in business, then I will not, or finance, I probably, within that 2 hours, if I really need to read, I will not pick a book related to finance. Probably I will pick something else. And then my logic is that when you really like get to a more senior level, the thinking process and also the vision or the mind map that you need to have in mind is quite different versus a mid or junior level, which you only need to focus on specific tasks. That means actually you need to know more stuff. And again, old school way of saying it is you need to connect the dot. But my basic knowledge is if you don't even know there is a dot there, then how can you connect the dot, right? So that's why you don't only focus on the area that you are good at, and also specialty, and then so spend those time working hour in that one for sure, build a career. But at the same time, if you really want to cross that line of like really like thinking in a bigger picture and then running your own company, etc., then probably you need that ability of like connecting the dot. And then right now is a good timing to really like locating the dot, basically. Yeah. So I think that is things that I would have do better, if right now I think back. Because back then, as I mentioned, working in Goldman, I spent 16 hours a day at work doing the financial model, right? So that's why it was like quite narrow, I would say, yeah. So that's why I'm glad that, after I left, I get a chance to work on different stuff and really like to locate different dots.
Damn, Brian, that's a good ass advice, man. That's a very good advice. I think this is super interesting about like your journey and the really how to get there. And I think the ideas of like keeping an open mind at the top is super valuable versus what you need at the top versus your junior and mid level is super interesting. we kind of want to talk a bit, maybe switch the topic a little bit about, you invest in a lot of very interesting stuff like alternative proteins, digital assets. So do you want to maybe just start like lever VC and like, do you want to just like, like alternative proteins, like what excites you about it? Why should people care? Like,
well, alternative protein, I guess, is I would say, I mean, in general, people think that, oh, it's just another food tech, right? So, but from our perspective, it's just from a top-down perspective, I think as a human being, we need it in the future, basically. So it's adding up different kind of things like the global warming and also the increasing in population, the food crisis, et cetera, et cetera. Naturally, you need another source of food, basically. And protein is one of the most important kind of nutrition that we need from time to time, right? So that's why when you think of the word alternative protein, that means we actually finding some technology and ways to really decide source another type of protein that human need. So this is really the main thesis. I mean, really from a top-down perspective, and then why people need that. But of course, I mean, investment cycle is investment cycle. The big thesis is big thesis. Investment cycle in the sense of like, okay, whether this is a good, we always talk about it, right? This is a good company, but it doesn't mean that it is a good investment. So it all depends on the price, the valuation, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say, because of big company like Beyond Meat, Impossible Food, at one point they have a super crazy valuations, then a lot of attention and capital go into this alternative protein area. And, but that moment actually is not the best investment moment because everything is super expensive. And then, but right now, also because of Beyond Meat's share price and this and that, or, go down quite a bit. So people become less interested in the area. But lucky that, we, in the past, we have quite a lot of capital flow in. So a lot of technology is kind of building up already. It's a little bit like Web3, basically. So a lot more like capital or infrastructure or technology built up already for alternative protein. But at the same time, since the investment cycle is a down cycle for alternative protein, so the valuation become much more interesting and attractive. So this is actually quite a good moment to invest, and that is the reason why we're raising a fund too.
Nice.
So to try to kind of support the ecosystem a little bit better, and then so in longer term, I guess it's a right thing and good thing to do to really like helping the next generation a little bit. Maybe, I don't know, when this technology get mature and become mainstream, maybe you and I become really old guys already. And then so, but you never know. And then I guess, so that's why both from an investment perspective, because of the cycle and also the investment thesis, top-down thesis, and also, a better world perspective, I think is a good one to really like pay attention to, yeah.
You mentioned a bit about like Beyond Meat. So I mean, obviously we're based in Hong Kong right now. Like, do you see a difference in how countries or like jurisdictions like the U.S. or like Europe is kind of going at it versus like what's happening here in Asia?
Yeah. The major difference is cultural difference. First of all, my observation is because in the past, actually even right now, the Western world like Europe and also US tend to pay more attention to this topic, this ESG topic, global warming topic. But in Asia, in China, especially my observation for China is they pay less attention to that. So that's why the whole thesis in especially from a customer demand perspective is not paying out as well as expected in the Asia regions. But I think things will slowly pick up because it's always that following that path, right? US, become a developed country, and then people, actually getting more educated, pay more attention to this stuff. I mean, all the rest of the developing countries basically following this path. So I think it takes time, but this is the major difference that I observe, and this is also one of the reasons why we get through that little kind of valuation cycle for the alternative protein, because in the Beyond Meat time, Impossible Food time, when the valuation hit peak, a lot of people are kind of thinking that, okay, China will, contribute a whole bunch of demand, this and that. But at the end, we find out that, it's not 100% true yet. And then so that's why, things get, the correction come in for valuations, et cetera, et cetera. So, but again, I mean, the fundamental technologies are getting more mature. And then I guess people will kind of see more and learn more about this industry, because at the end of the day, it's not just about Beyond Meat and Impossible Food, because there's different type of technology actually under alternative protein. A lot of people think that alternative protein is just about plant-based meat, but it's actually more than that. We have cultivated meat, we have fermentation technology, all of these kind of stuff are kind of upcoming, I would say, from an R&D perspective. Yeah.
What do you think is transformative about alternative protein?
To a lot of people, like, when I talk about cultivated meat, that means the meat is actually kind of created from lab in terms of like really like killing those animals and this and that. Maybe for some people it's already kind of interesting, next level kind of things. But from my perspective, it's next things that we should pay more attention to is just like most of the technology. So the technology is good, things are good, but the cost of doing that is still quite high. But we are getting into a stage that these type of R&Ds already get to a stage that the cost of production by using the technology is getting lower. And so until a point that they actually can be comparable to a traditional kind of protein or like a traditional kind of meat industry, then it will then become a kind of mass adoption kind of things. Yeah. So I think not really from a technology perspective. Maybe I look at it for some time. So I nothing really like super exciting from in the last 2-3 years, because things has been there, just developing, right? But what make me feel excited is really from different companies that we invest, we already see the trend of the cost going down quite a bit. Yeah. So it's the right path basically. Yeah.
Is there any company that you guys are invested in that you think is doing something really cool? Like obviously there's all of them that you invested in them, right?
Yeah.
But like one or two that you're like, damn, that's
yeah. I like a company called Mission Bond, right? So basically, they're focusing not the meat, right? So, but a little bit like a lot of industry. The industry itself already kind of getting mature, and there's a subsegment over the place. For example, Mission Bond is basically focusing on the fat part. So cultivate the alternative protein, but only fat But one of the reasons why is that if you really like break down the meat, right? So it's not only about how it looks, how it tastes. It's only including or what affecting how it tastes is actually the fat and everything adding up, right? So basically, they're focusing on that particular area, and then in the last 2 years, they're actually doing quite good, and then so it is one of the company that we have invested long ago.
What do you think are some of the misconceptions people have about alternative?
Oh, I mean, I just mentioned it. I mean, everyone think that alternative protein is just about. A lot of people think it's just about like plant-based meat. When I first talked to people, okay, we're investing in alternative protein, and then they would, besides Beyond Meat and Impossible Food, what else you can invest, right? But there's actually a whole bunch of things, including the drinks and things. Yeah. So this is, I think, is a major misunderstanding about the word alternative protein.
Do you want to talk a bit about Web3? What excites you? Like stuff that you are doing as well?
What excites me, of course, there's a whole bunch of like good talent like you guys here, and at the same time, I guess it's also a lot of exciting project coming from different part of the world because of the kind of supportive message that the Hong Kong government gives. So the DeFi, whatever kind of degen technology is always interesting, always exciting. From my perspective, what I myself or my firm, want to position ourselves is really like, instead of like going all the way to that high-end degen, we choose to take a step back and really like sit in the middle to help the transition of like Web 2 to Web 3 kind of concept. Is a little bit more take a step back and try to think from a traditional investor perspective and also even the regulator perspective, and think of, okay, how can I make people more comfortable to use this, right? So because at the end of the day, if you look back, the whole Web3 crypto world is started from I would say from a developer side, right? So laterally, I'm not saying that it is right or wrong, but laterally, the thinking or the consideration put it in for the traditional mass market will be less, right? Because it's starting from a developer side, right? So that's why right now we are trying to kind of really like from investor side, from wherever like user side, we try to think from that perspective more, and that's why we. Even from a product perspective, when we really launch some boring financial product which is surrounding crypto, like the ETF things. One of the reasons why is that, I mean, if you really want to get my mom to really understand a bit more about crypto, they should really, until this moment, she probably won't open a wallet by herself. And then, so the only kind of chance that she will buy it is really like just buy for ETF, because for her it's just buying stock and getting a little bit exposure there. And then so once she buy it, and then if the price really go up really good, then she start to get interested and then to learn more about that. And then so this is a way that we really want to bring more interest to the industry step by step. And again, I mean, sitting in Hong Kong, seeing a lot of I would say announcement, policy announcement, event announcement, from different party, including regulator and stuff. I mean, it's super exciting. And then we believe that step by step we're going to the right directions. For example, soon we will have the stablecoin kind of sample skyline coming out and license hopefully by the end of this year. And all this kind of infrastructure is actually essential, I think, for really like building Hong Kong as a digital asset hub in the future, because as you can imagine, if you can't fix the on-ramp, off-ramp problem, then how can you make the digital asset become a asset that people feel comfortable to use? I mean, it's really like a very, very 101 kind of situations that we need to get through, right? So good that, I mean, the government aware of that and then really like try to move quite quickly, especially from a Hong Kong MA side. I mean, every few days they have some consultation paper out. I was like, how come they have such a big team to do so many things? And then, so yeah, it's good to see that. Yeah. I think this kind of little small thing adding up is making the whole thing quite exciting. Yeah.
Which announcement would you say excites you the most?
If you really within the last few years, at least the government are willing to ban it. The moment that the Hong Kong government are willing to ban the table, saying it from in a fintech with that virtual asset here to stay, that one is actually quite an important moment, to be honest, for passing message to the industry. That because before that, I think both of you also aware that a lot of people keep asking the question: will China government will allow Hong Kong to do this? Until a moment that the Hong Kong government are willing to come out and say that it is here to stay, then all of a sudden the global player, global technology are much more willing to come to Hong Kong, the fund, etc., etc. So it's one of the most exciting, I would say, kind of announcement that I can think of. And besides that, of course, there's piece by piece things that happen just recently. For example, they start kind of looking at the OTC things. So everything is basically pointing to the right direction, solving some of the pain point that the industry having. So all of this for me is actually quite kind of impressive, I would say. Yeah.
That's so true. You bring up that point. I remember some of my friends who were also in the digital asset space. A lot of them were looking at Singapore because it was so uncertain what Hong Kong would do.
Yeah. I started working in digital assets in like 2018, and then like I remember like at that time like everything was coming out of Hong Kong, right? Like BitMEX, Tether, whether you think it's good or bad, whatever. It's like all the huge things were coming out, right? And then a lot of the big guys, like Amber, they moved to Singapore, like, and so much talent, and everyone was kind of leaving, in the aftermath. And even in 2021, like 2022, like before I, joined up, I was also like on the fence of moving to Singapore. Like most of my friends were going, and they're like, "Yo, like you're really gonna do Web3 in Hong Kong."
Well, I mean, I have to say, I mean, even ourselves, I mean, at one point we kind of thinking of like whether to start an office in Dubai, in Singapore, right? Until the Hong Kong government come over and say, okay, stay, because virtual asset is here to stay, right? So yeah, I mean, I think naturally, I mean, especially when you build a business, right? You want to find a place that give you a little bit more certainty. In the past, Hong Kong is good at that. Create a very stable business environment because of the legal structure and different things. Right now, from a digital asset perspective, I think they are trying to do the same thing, as in building up a good regulations, framework, infrastructure, and hopefully also a sustainable and long-term kind of business stable environment for different business to really build up high people, build office here. Yeah.
Can I ask, so you have a very special, unique spot because CIO, you get to work on all these different products, and you're speaking to investors and people all over the world. Like, from your perspective, like, what is, like, to maybe it's the average person, they hear certain things about digital assets, about Web3, everyone's talking about AI, but what are you hearing? What are you seeing? Like, what's the vibe that you've?
Well, I think interestingly, in the last few months, a lot of international funds are actually still see Hong Kong as one of the most important fundraising hub, and I personally think that the Hong Kong government should leverage on that. And this actually kind of linked to last year, a lot of people talk about, right, the RWA kind of tokenization, because at the end of the day, this is just another way, one way to look at it is another way for fundraising. So how can you basically build a better framework and infrastructure, allow people to do tokenization in Hong Kong easier, faster, more efficient, so that with that in mind, you can bring more projects to Hong Kong to do fundraising. So, this is the angle I can think of riding on. Still after the COVID, all those international funds think that okay, the money is still here in Hong Kong, and then all of them like to do roadshow in Hong Kong to do fundraising. I think this is one thing, and then the other things is I guess recently from an investor perspective, I would say is the last bull market. People always like to ask us, okay, whether we have some direct token investment opportunity. But obviously, after they invest, bear market come and then it doesn't really have a very good return. And then after that, I mean, they're still kind of open to the industry right now. Things are coming back, and then when they first come back, like a year ago, and then people start asking, okay, instead of asking direct token investment, they kind of start to trust the manager. And then so they ask us, okay, is there any fund that you can introduce? And so we start introduce some different funds to different people, and then fast forward a little bit, in the last 6 months, I guess, things change again. And then because some of the feedback that we get is, especially those family office and allocator, they were like, okay, even you invest different good Web3 fund to us, we find that within that Web3 kind of ecosystem, there are a whole different type of directions, visas that they can invest it in. So they start to ask us, is there any fund of fund that we can introduce?
Wow.
As in, okay, so that the fund of fund can actually help them to deploy into the right visas, right directions, instead of like, sometime I fold them a GameFi focused fund, sometime I fold them DeFi. Because when I fold them these two funds, they were like, okay, then should it be DeFi or GameFi? Okay. And then they probably don't have time and enough knowledge to really like figure that out. And then so that's why some of the investors start asking, fund of fund kind of allocation. Is there any good fund of fund that they can just deploy in that, and then that fund of fund will help them to manage the risk, surrounding the whole Web3 things. Yeah. So I think this is really from an investor angle, the mindset that I can see, how is it changing in the last couple of months. Yeah.
What do you think is one of the misconceptions for people to have on this space?
Well, I have to say that, I mean, still, unfortunately, we did in the last couple of months, we still have some bad media, bad actor in the industry. Then, so that is the reason why there's still some traditional people still think that it's a scam and then is it safe, and then so how come the government said there's regulation but there's still scam, and then so stuff like that. I mean, but you have to keep on educating people that every single different industry have bad actor. So what we mean by like having a good regulation should be means the chance for the bad actor to do whatever bad things that they want to do become lower. So we are going to that directions. So we're moving forward for that one. But in terms of the the misunderstanding for this is still a lot of people just don't listen and just think, okay, as long as you talk about crypto, then it's a scam. Yeah, it's still like this. I mean, especially really like the old school traditional finance guys. Yeah, so we have to basically educate a little bit more. I mean, I believe that you guys also face the same problem, especially you guys facing some traditional corporate. When you try to tell them about NFT, they will be like, oh, NFT, is it like a speculation thing or blah, blah, blah. And then you need to educate a little bit more about how exactly they can leverage on the technology of blockchain and NFT to engage the client, et cetera, right? So I mean, these are, it never change. I mean, the misunderstanding. So, but I guess we are in a situation that because of the supportive government kind of message, it's easier for us to educate the people, but still, misunderstanding is still there until we talk to them. Yeah.
So what is one thing? It doesn't have to be finance. It doesn't have to be career related. what is one thing in life that you think is underrated, and one thing that you think is very overrated?
Overrated first, right? So I think the overrated part, I have to say it, right? So it's really the after work kind of partying things in the investment banking industry. So in Hong Kong, for me, it's never happened, right? It really doesn't look like what you can see from the Leonardo movie. Nothing like that. And then, so basically, after my work, I just go back home and sleep, and then 4 hours later, I go back to the office. And then this is the more from my perspective at least, right? This is the overrated part. And then. Well, it's a little bit circle back to the 2 hour things that I mentioned in the morning routine, right? So before I haven't tried it more, I think it's like, oh, just keep your head down, keep working, and then so. But I think if really like linking back to what I mentioned instead of like copying what you said, and then, I guess really like try to be open-minded. I mean, this part is sometimes underrated because people will think, okay, especially in the last 20 years, 30 years, being a specialty is mainstream, right? And being a generalist usually is not a good thing. So that's why people always think that if you work in account, then you better get your license, 100% understand in and out, and then just only work on that part, and then so be part of the kind of big machine, right? So, but for me, I guess, again, when you have opened your mind and learn more different stuff, the knowledge from different area actually can help the part that you are, kind of specific, specialties in, So that is quite kind of important. Yeah, I think it's underrated too.
Are you streaming anything interesting? Could be on Netflix, could be on YouTube.
Oh, not really. I mean, to be honest, nothing really specific. One of the reasons why, because my wife doesn't really like to start watching anything on Netflix, because once she start, she can't stop. So that's why we never start. And then so we whenever we're on YouTube, we always like watch those travel stuff, and then because we like traveling. Yeah. Okay. So but we always like travel to the same place, just dive deeper and deeper, instead of like, okay, I just touched on this place for 3 days and then another place for 3 days. We prefer like going to Bangkok, right, for many times, and then Chris also know that. I mean, Bangkok again, and I was like, okay, yeah, but this time we are like diving deeper, and then going to different places, and then try to learn the culture a little bit more, and then so one kind of interesting kind of practice that we're doing right now, since we like to go to particular place quite a lot, like Fukuoka. Actually, this is already like 4th time or 5th time, and then so now we decide every time before we go to a city. So we really, although it's sometimes it could be very boring, but we decide to study a little bit about the history of that place first, and then to really understand a bit more about the culture, and then so that when we go there, it's not just about having good food or shopping and stuff. And then so yeah, this is something that that's why we're watching YouTube for these kind of things. Yeah. So yeah.
No, that's super cool, and that's probably like also a very interesting way to travel. Like for you, like you mentioned books, like you mentioned books earlier. Like, what is like a couple of books you'd like to recommend that was transformative to you, or something you thought was really interesting?
One book the name, if I remember correctly, is called The Range. Okay. Is exactly the point that I mentioned. Being a specialist versus being a generalist. What is the good and bad? And then so this one is interesting. And then the other one, which is completely not related to my work, is the name of the book is called Headspace Guide about meditation and mindfulness. So basically, the whole idea is it's actually not about meditations, and it's actually about how do you take care of your own feeling every single day. Just spend like 5 to 10 minutes to take care of your own feeling, to listen to yourself, and then I take some advice from the book, and then I mean the result is quite straightforward. I feel happier from some perspective every single day, and then so I guess that is important, right? So when you feel happy, positive, and then you come to the job, and then so everything become at least feel more smooth, right? So it's
It all starts from happiness. Like if you're not happy, like the rest of your
yes,
day
exactly.
Brutal, right? Great. Last question. Do you have anything that you would like to talk about, to shill,
To plug.
plug? Open to anything.
Anything.
Well, we will be launching our Bitcoin ETF very soon. If you have a stock account, buy it.
Cool.
Buy it. It's the only time I look directly in the camera. Seriously, thank you so much for your time, the advice, the stories. It was super interesting and super lucky to know you. And thank you guys for listening. Really
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.